Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe. So I'm just writing an article now about history. I don't know really what to call myself. I mean, I've done many articles on history, and actually recently I've been compiling those and thinking of making them into a book. Now, that is, external history is one of the things that is going on there. The history of the Sampradaya, history of people, of ideas as they developed within the Sampradaya, the effect of Siddhanta Saraswati, Bhakti Thakur, Bhaktivedanta Swami. And then going back, because you want to find out, all right, what is the pristine and pure source of all this? Now, the Indian system is rather interesting because we always talk about the Veda. And this is Vedic. Prabhupada was really big on the word Vedic. And, one becomes quite clear right away that he is casting a wide net when he uses the word Vedic, because he doesn't just mean the 4 Vedas, but he means, or even the rituals tradition. In scholarship, you talk about a Vedic period, and then a classical period, or a Brahminical period, and then a Hindu period. It's somewhere along the line in the post-Buddhist period. There's a kind of a sea change all the way up to Shankaracharya. And then when that happened, you get to Shankaracharya, then the Vedic system has been completely Hinduized, really. Well, anyway, the point being that Vedic, there's practically nothing left of the Vedas in common Hinduism. Practically nothing. There are vestiges, you could say, like an appendix in the body, sort of vestiges. They're historical vestiges. And just I'm using the analogy of language, I think that's entirely appropriate. My basic thesis, the basic idea is that religion, first of all, let's widen the scope for religion a little bit. When I say religion, I mean anything that is a discussion of what's important about life, the meaningful part of life, is connected to philosophy. But what I would say is it's connected to philosophy in exactly the same way that jnana and bhakti are connected. That there's not because there's a deity, but because there's emotion involved. It's the illogical part of the brain. We believe we're rational, but we're not. I don't care how rational you are, you're not rational. I'm sorry. There's too many elements that are not entirely the product of reason. Or you could say nothing is the product of reason. The reason is just scurrying along to catch up to emotion or desire or whatever other thing needs rationalization. Those people who are interested in truth are rare. Nevertheless, most people do want to have some kind of a comfortable working philosophy of life, or else, what can they do? So on the very, very basic level, it's just keeping your body alive. And then the Brahmins in every culture, not only are they setting the kind of universal zeitgeist of thought, right? What people are believing nowadays, the common man. 100 years ago, those were only being talked about in the ivory towers. Anyway, saying that there's a religious language, there's a language, and that language is universal, just like Chomsky says that there's a kind of a universal predisposition to language in the brain, which is logical. Language is too important a part of human development. So to think that there's not a kind of a hardwired system in the brain that will adapt the living entity to language is almost ridiculous as to pass understanding. But now to say that there's something similar with religion, well, that's also being stated by someone like Carl Jung when he talks about archetypes. That archetypes are symbolic representations that are like shorthand for communication to yourself, from the communication of higher self to lower self, from higher consciousness to lower consciousness. So that even if a symbol is not understood properly, it has effect and meaning and influence on character and personality. The thing is that religious symbols, they will have deep participation in the collective unconsciousness, but they also have multi-meanings. Just like in language, words have many meanings, so also symbols can have many meanings. And actually, it's their multi-valenced, having the multiple meanings is what makes a symbol powerful. So, right. So, history of thought. Ideas, generally speaking, they're coming in cyclical fashion. In something like Krishna consciousness, it's very strange. It's evang parampara praptam imang rajarshayo vidu. Imang vivasvate yogam. So in ISKCON, Prabhupada's teaching, the idea that Krishna literally spoke to the sun god Vivasvan and then transmitted it through the Puranic view of time and creation. Radha-Krishna. That there's some pristine truth that was given to humanity in its origins, and that pristine truth remains always true. I accept that. I say that's correct. But not necessarily in the way that we would think, not the way that a literalist would take it. The laws of human nature, whether they are malleable or not, the whole purpose of just let me bear with that a second. Human nature is malleable. Humans can evolve according to their particular proclivities. So culture and so on are all involved in that evolutionary process. Religion is also involved in that. Religion, I would say, is the leading aspect of that process. Even when it's anti-religion, try to understand. I'm drinking my evening milk and I'm blabbing to the community. So, Krishna consciousness has a historical side. We say that here there is an essential truth that is eternal. And even if it's not found in the Veda, Shruti Bhya Vimrigyam, it only happens a couple of times, in the Bhagavatam. But when it's talk about the gopis, they found the Krishna that is not in the Vedas. So you can see right away that there's a clash. Or later on the Shrutis, the ones that followed the gopis, like in the 87th chapter, the ones that followed the gopis, Vayante Sama Samadhya. So they're talking about that the Upanishads followed the gopis in the hope of getting the same blessings that they got. Right. So there's a thread. And that thread is very, very tangled in many ways. But one thing that makes it easier when you adopt a religion, right? You say, okay, this is the crucial historical moment. Like in Christianity, the sacrifice of Christ on the cross, or in Islam, the Ejira. So in Krishna consciousness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the life of Chaitanya. And the life of Chaitanya, but the life of Chaitanya as interpreted by Rupa Raghunath and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. They are the ones whose vision of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has conquered the Sampradaya. So our philosophy, right? Preman Pumartho Mahan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srinath Chakravarti in the beginning of his Bhagavata commentary. 5 things that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught. Of those, it says, Aradhyo Bhagavan Brajeshatanayastadama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Brajabadhu Bhargena Yakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam Preman Pumartho Mahan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhor Matamidam Tatradara Na Paraha. Jai Sri Radha. Milk. We're very fortunate to have the milk of Vrindavan cows. And I don't know if they vet the Goshala, but I'm sure that any Goshala in Vrindavan is better than anything anywhere else in the world when it comes to getting milk. Now, to continue on with my convoluted thought processes. I'm talking about why I am interested in the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and in particular in discovering what is the essence of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So I'm saying that our historical moment is that of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as interpreted by Rupa, let's say Swarupa, Rupa, and Kaviraj Goswami. The Kaviraj Goswami is coming at the end of a process. I'm talking about these things in the K3 articles. If you want to find out about that. Right. So the essence of the idea, what is the idea? Anarpita charim chirat. Chaitanya Charitamrita has presented a very powerful argument, and I try to make this over and over again. People who don't understand. What does it mean? Why do we argue for the avatari? That Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, and so on and so forth. This is very important in our sampradaya. And what is the argumentation that is used in order to hammer that point home? So when all is said and done, and we come to the conclusion that our worshipable object is Radha and Krishna, the divine couple, then what does that mean? Of what importance is that to me? Why does that resonate with me? The Vaishnava history is long. Srila Prabhupada in some ways was brilliant because he said, you have to make it all things to all people. I will tell you that that's my confidential understanding of the Bhagavata Parampara, by the way. Jai Sri Radha. At any rate, so the idea of historical ideas and the meaning of the historical ideas, the revelation that was given. A revelation was given in the 17th century, in the 16th and 17th centuries. I'm going to say, let's say 16th century, let's just say. We'll say the beginning of the 16th century is Mahaprabhu having his ecstatic revelation in Gaya. And almost 100 years exactly to the day after that, Kaviraj Goswami composes the Chaitanya Charitamrita as the last. He was dying. He died not long afterwards. So that was his parting gift of immeasurable importance to the Sampradaya by translating it into Bengali and doing it in such a way that was aesthetically pleasing and revealing of Mahaprabhu also. But most of all, it's because he was able to weave the personality of Mahaprabhu into a coherent narrative that also embodied a particular teaching. And that particular teaching was the teaching that Rupa Goswami gave. So Rupa Goswami becomes the pivotal personality. And the other Goswamis, even Sanatana Goswami, is accepting that the doctrine that they follow, that the theory that they follow, that the insight, the fundamental insight that they're following comes from Rupa Goswami. And that was because Rupa Goswami had insight into the personality of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And because the ideas of Rupa Goswami are so elevated and so insightful into the divine nature of humanity, Jai Sri Radhe. So we have this century, the first century of Chaitanya Vaishnavism. And a lot of things, interesting things happened during that century. But the interesting thing, of course, with Khetri is that the philosophy of Rupa Goswami is being presented, and it wins over the warring factions, let's be dramatic, the disparate factions in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, all of whom, none of whom seem to be able to agree as what exactly it is that they're supposed to be believing in. What do they believe in? What is their practice? What are they doing here? Is there anything that unifies all these people besides their professed love for Chaitanya? And what the heck is this with Chaitanya? That he's got, what's his philosophy anyway? I don't think that believe me, I don't think that the Shikshastakam was well known until Rupa Goswami's Padyavali and the Chaitanya Charitamrita came around. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was like in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. That's the way they knew Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as an ecstatic, almost a crazy man. Just, there's Vaishnava, the Bhagavatam is there and so on. But Chaitanya Charitamrita arranges everything into a clear and coherent theology, and all based on Rupa and Jiva Goswami, of course. There's nearly, a lot of what's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita are summary studies of the books of the Goswamis, which is what, of course, makes the Chaitanya Charitamrita so valuable. And he presents Mahaprabhu's teachings to Rupa and Sanatan as though, these are the things that are in their books. And Rupa Goswami, when he says the verse at the beginning of Chaitanya, of Bhakti Rasamrita, is Yasya Preranaya, another verse that he says, where he says that he's inspired by Chaitanya to write the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Doesn't necessarily mean that Mahaprabhu taught him word for word, but at least in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu gives him a general outline. You do like this, you do like this. And I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it for a moment. And Mahaprabhu certainly must have transmitted something of the Ramananda teachings also. Anyhow, the point being, right, is that it's really Rupa Goswami that's the one we got to watch here. Okay? And what is Rupa Goswami writing, and how is he thinking, and where are he getting his ideas when he writes? What's his world? What is Rupa Goswami's world of knowledge? Now that I can never really know, but you get a drift, let's say, when you read these books and when you know them very well. An impossible venture, let me say right away. It's an impossible venture, and you take on more than one, and then you're really screwed. We've got too many people in our pantheon. You can't know them all. Sirade Sham, Sirade Sham, Sirade Sham. So Rupa Goswami's insight is that God is a manifestation of a divine couple. That God exists with both genders. God exists formlessly as love. And when love takes form, it begins by separating into genders, into opposites. And this creates such an agitation that the entire creation comes out of it. The Big Bang. The Big Bang, like the Brahma Samhita, the idea of or the Gita. You say, Tasmin garbham dadami aham. Aham bija pradakpita. The metaphor, the symbol of God, and nature as being the great male and the great female. And God impregnates the golden womb, the garbha, the garbhodaka, lying there in the garbhodaka, the uterine fluid. Jai Sri Radhe. The impregnating of nature with the seed coming from the Father. An old and ancient symbol. So the idea that the masculine and feminine, that division is the first creative friction. And that first creative friction has all the symptoms of life, which includes both eros and thanatos. The price of love is death. Jai Sri Radhe. All right, so what we're talking about here, just to try to tie the loose ends together or bring back my train of thought to the original, we're talking about historical development of an idea. And we're saying that the particular ideas of Rupa Goswami and following him Jiva Goswami in two rather different ways, let's say. But at any rate, two different personalities, two different ways of visualizing the whole spectrum of thought, which is so wonderful about the Goswamis, is that they're not all in the same frame of mind. Each one of them is an individual who has his own particular insight and understanding and flavor of devotion. But with Rupa Goswami, we're talking about the divine couple. We're talking about erotic love as being the symbol of the highest realm of the divine, because it is the Adi, it is the beginning, when the divine truth, the one undivided truth, which is love, decides to manifest in action, because it knows that in the friction that is created of duality, that although you have the possibility of entropy, you have the possibility of things degrading. At the same time, you have the possibility of things revealing their most pure essence. That's the meaning of the avatar. It's to show, to give you a glimpse of the kaleidoscope named God, to give a particular glimpse into one prism. But because God is infinite, each one of his prisms is also infinite. And we happen to think that we found a particularly pleasing prism with which to gaze upon this creation. And the person who pointed to this prism is Rupa Goswami. And he did so with an understanding of the rasa tradition. With the knowledge of a courtly Pandit who would have been interested in matters of rasa, as it was, for instance, in the court of Lakshman Sen, who still lived on in the memory, of Bengalis as a golden period of their history, when Lakshman Sen had in his court such jewels as Govardhana Acharya, Jayadev, Umapati Dhar, Doi. So all these jewels, were well known to Rupa Goswami, Sadhukti Karnamrita. The Padyavali is actually based on Sadhukti Karnamrita for the most part. Sadhukti Karnamrita was composed in the court of Lakshman Sen, which shows that there was, a lot of charcha going on. Just like, you have in the Gaudiya Math, you have Gaudiya Kantahar. It's a Gaudiya Kantahar, it's for like the everyday man's catechism there in the Gaudiya Math. They're sort of covering with all the shlokas, all the pramanas, all the important stuff that you got to know if you're going to be in the Gaudiya Math. And so you're expected to kind of memorize that. These are your pramans. So in the same way, these are your pramans. Right? Sadhukti Karnamrita, and before that there's a one called Suhashita Ratna Kosha, which is also from Bengal. Kind of interesting Buddhist collection that was maybe 100 years earlier, just at the tail end of the Buddhist period in Jagat-Dala, northern East Bengal, somewhere up around the Assam border, Padma River, the northern part of the Padma River. Maybe, I forget what's the name of the current jela there. Anyway, I'm going off topic as usual. I'm trying to say that Rupa Goswami, we want to know what it is. What was the world? What is the mental world that Rupa Goswami is living in? And it's not just the world of a Gaudiya Vaishnava in the sense that we think of it. He was a courtier. He was an educated courtier. And to know the Bhagavatam in his circles was something that one did, because it was considered to be particularly stimulating intellectually. But I don't think that Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami knew the Bhagavatam that well until they became interested in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because they make a point of that in telling their life story. Rupa Goswami is bringing the whole realm of the courtier vision and the classical vision of love, and is adapting it to Radha and Krishna. He's saying, yes, that you're right, that there is such a thing as an archetype. Only that archetype has reality, and that reality is Radha and Krishna. I'm going to stop there. I hope I made something clear. Anyway, I'll resume it again in my next talk.